Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. Today we're going to go into the book of 1 Kings, the 11th chapter. And in this chapter, as you can see in the subheading, Solomon turns from God. So it's in this chapter that we start to see the ending of the reign of King Solomon, and the ill direction, right, that he ends up turning towards, and what that ends up meaning for the rest of the nation of Israel. So this is the book of 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. All right, and the going in unto them and them coming in unto you is that marriage, right? Giving your sons and daughters to them and vice versa. And the reason being, as the Lord said, right, they would turn your hearts after their gods, and it would be easier for them to do so. One example being, if you go all the way back to the time of the garden, Eve was able to sway Adam into partaking of that fruit of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because she was his wife. She was so close to him, right? And so, when you marry these women, as the Lord is saying, just like King Solomon clave onto them in love, you would, through the love, you would end up possibly going off. And the Lord was trying to avoid that here. In any case, the story continues. Verse 3, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. See? His wives turned away his heart. What that means is his mind was not perfect with the Lord anymore. Okay? He ended up, being swayed, by his wives here. For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord Yahweh his God, as was the heart of David his father. And the reason it wasn't perfect was because, instead of serving the Lord and only the Lord, due to his wives and the gods that they followed and they served, he ended up, partaking in that, which we're going to read in the verses below. Verse 5, for Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil, and these are idols, by the way, right? That these other nations worshipped as gods. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh, and went not fully after the Lord Yahweh, as did David his father. Then did they see, the thing is, interestingly enough, right? Solomon didn't commit adultery, right? The scriptures, he didn't commit murder, but he committed idolatry. And that's why even here, as the Lord is saying, yeah, David did some things, right? He committed adultery, right? He had Uriah be set up to be put to death. But, in all of that, he repented. But above that, as the scriptures say, his heart was perfect with the Lord. Okay, so he fell prey to the fleshly desire, but at the end of the day, his heart always stayed, in line with the Lord, and he always only served Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai. Verse 7, then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem. So that high place being like an altar, or, as some would call it, a shrine, but a place of worship where they could sacrifice and worship these gods. And notice as well what this is doing, right? As the king, the ruler, you're setting up these high places within the borders of Israel. That's not going to be just for his wives that would serve there and worship there, but you would also have other Israelites who would then be influenced, seeing these different high places around, to start partaking in that. Okay, and so by Solomon doing this, he also, introduced a heavy presence of idolatry into Israel, as where he should have been doing the opposite. In the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord Yahweh was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned away, or was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods. But he kept not that which the Lord Yahweh commanded. And when you go back into the previous chapters, you'll notice, right, when the Lord did show up to, appeared to Solomon in that dream, the dreams that he had at Gibeon, and forget the location of the other place. After he had prayed to the Lord did warn him, right, to say that, hey, I'll establish you and can continue, your prosperity, so long as you stay right and follow my commandments and do what I require of you. Verse 11. Wherefore the Lord Yahweh said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Now you also have to imagine, right? For those, like, you may have a woman or a child or somebody who, takes instructions or directions from you, or you may just instruct somebody concerning a certain matter. And it's one thing when you tell them how to do something and then they mess up. You show your child to do X and then they do X with a little dash. Now it doesn't look like an X, right? It's one thing when that happens. It's another thing when you very explicitly tell someone, right, do not do X, Y, or Z, or do only X, Y, or Z, and then they don't do it, or they go and do something opposite, or they do what you told them not to do. And I mean, like, explicitly, like you tell them don't go over here, and then you find out that they went over here. You see, so it's a different kind of disappointment and anger when you find that out, because it's one thing if you're telling them how to do something and they're trying but they're failing at it, or at least they're trying. You may get a bit frustrated, right? Because it's like, come on, it's like the 200th try, you still can't get it right, but they're still trying. But when you tell somebody don't do this and they go and do exactly what you told them not to do, you get it's almost like disrespectful in a way, right? As though they don't respect your authority, your words, whatever it is, because they heard you say it, they agreed, and then they went and did it, right? So what reason was good, so good, right? What did you fear that much more other than me to where you went and disobeyed exactly what I told you not to do, or what I told you to do? So as it says, the Lord was angry with Solomon, and hence this was the result. Continuing in verse 11, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. So he said, I'll still have mercy, and I'm not, I'm definitely taking the kingdom, out of your hand. Meaning, as where you had the tribe of Judah, right, the royal line, which was king over all Israel, the Lord is saying now that's not gonna be the case anymore. When you rend something, you rip it, or you separate it, you tear it up, tear it apart. So when he says he's gonna rend the kingdom from thee, it's like you're holding on to something and somebody comes and grabs and pulls and then it rips, and you may be left with like a tiny part and they get the bulk of it. But the Lord said here that because of David's sake, I'm not going to do it in your reign or in your rulership, but after you die, your son's rulership, that's when I'm going to, rend the kingdom from your line. Okay, and as it says, out of the hand of thy son. Howbeit I will not rend away all the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. And the Lord Yahweh stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. Okay, now at this time, right, this adversary that it's mentioning here, because now it's going to go into a bit of history of who Hadad is, right, and how he became that adversary. So in verse 14 is generally speaking here saying that during the time of Solomon, the Lord stirred up an adversary against him, which was Hadad, this Edomite here. Verse 15, for it came to pass when David was in Edom. So now we've gone back in time a bit to during King David's reign. And as it says, when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom. So during the campaign, you can call it, in Edom, while David was still there, Joab had taken some time to go and slay, those of the Israelites that had fallen in battle. Okay, because as they were in this campaign, it says they had smitten every male in Edom. That's pretty much what they were doing, which verse 16 tells you that. Obviously, they wouldn't be burying the Edomites, right? So verse 16, it says, for 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel being the army of Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom. So that was, that was like the goal, take them all out. However, verse 17, so it's saying that it came to pass, right, when Joab, going back to verse 15, when he went up to bury the slain, that Hadad fled. He, and remember, he's an Edomite, right? He and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him to go into Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. So while all of this is happening, while this campaign of taking out the Edomites was happening, and the males in specific, because they are the ones who carry the seed, Hadad and a few other Edomites were able to slip away, and Hadad being yet still a child. And why him? Because he was of the king's line. So, you know how that story goes, right? They try to preserve him and so on and so forth. And they arose out of Midian and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran. Now let's put this up in here and say, Hadad flees to Egypt. And let's see if they have a map on that. Take a look at some images. Maybe it's not that important of an event, which is why they didn't map it out here. But what we can do is we can look at Paran, Israel map. Okay. Yeah. So here we go. There we go. This is decent enough. So, yeah, okay, this is good. So with this map, this is pretty good. You can see that you have Midian over here, and if you go a little bit north, you'll have Edom, right? So they fled from here, from Midian, to Paran, which is somewhere around here. They got certain, some more people to go with them, and then they crossed on and continued on into Egypt. Continuing here, verse 18, and they arose out of Midian and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt, unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, which gave him an house, and appointed him victuals, and gave him land. And Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him to wife the sister of his own wife, the sister of Tahpenes the queen. Keep in mind, this is happening over a course of time. when they fled, Hadad was a little child. But now it's talking about how he married Pharaoh's wife's sister. So at this point, he's pretty much old, right? He's old enough to lead that life. Okay. Verse 20. And the sister of Tahpenes bare him Ganubath, his son. Now, what's interesting here is when you look into the word here for Ganubath in Hebrew, is I believe it's Ganabwath. Let's pull that up, which actually means theft. Yeah, Ganab or Ganabath, which is theft here because it goes back to the root word Ganab, right, which means to steal. And if you look at the 10 Commandments, right, in the Hebrew, there is one of the commands which says, "Thou shalt not steal," right? And the word there is, you have the word ganab in there, right? I think it's thaganab, which is like, thou shalt not steal. You should not steal, like la'ah thaganab, if I'm not mistaken. Cool. So let's continue on. So it's interesting, right, that this Edomite's son's name was theft, or stemming from to steal. But he has this son, right, Ganubath, whom Tahpenes weaned in Pharaoh's house. And Ganubath was in Pharaoh's house among the sons of Pharaoh. So yes, you had Joab, King David and Joab on this campaign to basically exterminate the Edomites. But as we're reading of here in 1 Kings, the 11th chapter, they weren't fully successful with that, right? Cool. Verse 21, and when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers. So you can imagine this is probably maybe some time after the events of like First Kings, the 1st and 2nd chapter, where we know David is on his deathbed. He ends up passing. Solomon is now appointed king. Now, Hadad hears this and he's like, okay, I can go back. I want to go back. It says, and that Joab, the captain of the host, was dead. Hadad said to Pharaoh, let me depart, that I may go to mine own country. And then Pharaoh said unto him, but what hast thou lacked with me, that behold, thou seekest to go to thine own country? So what's wrong? What haven't I given you here that you want to leave? And he answered, nothing. Howbeit, let me go in any wise. I still want to go. And God stirred him up another adversary. So this was the story, the little background of Hadad, who became an adversary unto Solomon, right? King Solomon during his reign. And the Most High stirred him up another adversary. And this being, the Most High stirred up another adversary against Solomon. And this one was Rezin, the son of Eliada, which fled from his lord Hadadezer, king of Zobah. And Zobah is in Syria, right? A portion of that area. So you had Rezin, which was maybe a servant. He ends up fleeing from his master, right? And then it says here, and he gathered men unto him. So he became sort of like this rebel army leader-ish kind of thing, gathered some people onto him, and became captain over a band, right? Like a army, maybe like a small army. When David slew them of Zobah, and they went to Damascus and dwelt therein and reigned in Damascus. So you had this Rezin, he flees from his master. He ends up amassing a few, people, builds a small army. And when David, on their campaign, taking out the neighboring nations, when they slew the present force that was reigning in Damascus, right, particularly in Zobah, then Rezin and his men went after that and went and occupied that area and then started to reign over there. Verse 25, and he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, beside the mischief that Hadad did. So these were like the two main adversaries the Lord raised up against Solomon. And he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. And Jeroboam, the son of Nabat, an Ephrathite, which is another way of saying an Ephraimite, or an inhabitant of Ephraim, of Zeradah, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zeruah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. and this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Milo, and repaired the breaches of the city of David his father. And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor. And Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, meaning he got things done, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. So the labor force, the things, the work that needed to be done, he basically put Jeroboam in charge of that. And it came to pass at that time, when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite found him in the way, and he had clad himself with a new garment, and they too were alone in the field. And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him, and rent it in 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, Take thee 10 pieces, for thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the God of Israel, Behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and will give 10 tribes to thee. But he shall have 1 tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. So basically what happened here, right? Ahijah goes, right? He comes across, and he was sent by the Lord, obviously. So he comes across Jeroboam. He grabs that new garment, he parts it into 12, representing the 12 tribes. Then he tells him, look, take 10. And this is basically a token, right, as to what's actually going to happen, because these 10 pieces are really going to be 10 tribes out of Israel that the Lord is going to give you to reign over, because he's going to take them out of the power of King Solomon. Now these 10 tribes, you have, the 9 of the northern kingdom, and then that would include Levi as well. Because when you actually look on the map, right, you had the suburbs for the Levites, and the bulk of the territory for the northern kingdom was you had suburbs all over, right? So in any case, you had the 10 tribes here, which included Levi, and then he says, but I'm going to leave 1 tribe for David, right? For David's sake, I'm going to leave 1 tribe, which then comes up to 11. But in actuality, this 1 tribe consisted of both Judah and Benjamin. Okay, so it's primarily Judah, but Benjamin was included in there. So though it says 1 tribe, it's really referring to the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin. And we'll find out as we keep on going. Matter of fact, even in the next chapter. But as it says here, because that they have forsaken me, and have worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David his father. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life, for David my servant's sake, whom I chose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand. So during the reign of Solomon, I'm not going to take the kingdom out of his hand. But when his son comes up into power, during his time that I'm going to take the kingdom out of his hand. And will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes. And unto his son will I give 1 tribe, that David my servant may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, so that he may have at least 1 tribe to reign over, as it says, before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. And I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth, and shall be king over Israel. Now when we jump very quickly to 1 Kings the 12th chapter, right, just a reference point here. This is 1 Kings 12 and 20. And this is obviously some time after what we just read in 1 Kings 11. And it came to pass, when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was gone or was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. So what happened here? Jeroboam ended up fleeing, which we're going to read in 1 Kings 11. And after Solomon died, Jeroboam came back. And when they found that out, everybody called him, particularly the northern kingdom in particular, right, to say, hey, come reign over us. As it says, and made him king over all Israel. And there was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. And that would be one tribe, right? Verse 21, and when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. See, so at this point we can already see, and really let me read down to 23. But the word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and unto all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people, saying, then he goes on to say the message. But you can sort of see here, right, that though it mentions that only the tribe of Judah followed the house of David, in verse 21 we see that Benjamin is included in here, right? And clearly they weren't a part of the tribes that were rent from Rehoboam and went under the reign of Jeroboam. Okay, so that gives a bit more light to what we're reading of here in 1 Kings 11, that though it mentions one tribe, it's really Judah and Benjamin. Okay, and that's that those two tribes plus the 10 that Jeroboam would reign over, making them 12. So where are we at? Verse 38. And it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and will walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and will give Israel unto thee. And I will for this afflict the seed of David, but not forever. So, you know, if Ahijah's telling Jeroboam now, right? The Lord says, look, if you obey him, you follow his ways, you keep your heart after him like David did, then he's going to establish you, right? When he says, I'll build thee a sure house as I built for David, he's going to establish you. But he is going to punish the seed of David, you know, at least for now, because of this transgression, but not forever. Verse 40, Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt. So you can imagine that word got around. This is what was being said, like, hey, Jeroboam is going to come up and the kingdom is going to be rent. And then obviously, as it says here, Solomon sought to take out Jeroboam. And Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt, unto Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. Which is why when we read in 1 Kings 12, for that precept, it says that when Jeroboam was come back, because at this point he had to flee into Egypt for that safety. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, and all that he did, and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon? And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David, his father, and Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. And that brings us to the end of the book of 1 Kings, the 11th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak, Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.